Hi, this is Professor Smith, and I'm going to talk about the books we'll be reading together in the Christian Tradition course this fall in Christ College. First, I'll start with a brief overview of the course and how the books fit into what we'll be learning together. And in case any of you want to get a head start on the reading, which, by the way, is definitely not required, I'll also make suggestions about which books are the most accessible and maybe even enjoyable summertime reading. This course will explore the Christian tradition primarily through the lens of vocation, what we're called to uniquely as individuals and broadly speaking as members of the human family. Two other complementary themes will guide our inquiry: spirituality, the inner or spiritual dimension of our lives, how we participate in the life of God, and also God's mission, what God's purpose in the world is. The course is divided up into 4 units, each one exploring a specific aspect of vocation from the perspective of the Christian tradition. So, now I'll introduce the books that will guide our thinking on these 4 ways of thinking about vocation. The first unit is called Vocation and the Way of Jesus, and it explores the pivotal role of Jesus in Christian thinking about vocation. To help us understand how Jesus fits into the Christian story, we'll read Simply Christian by contemporary biblical theologian N.T. Wright. This book explains the Christian story in terms of 4 basic human desires: the quest for justice, the thirst for spirituality, the longing for relationships, and the capacity for beauty. If you're not familiar with the Christian tradition, this book is a good place to start. It's well written, at times even in a conversational tone, and would make for pretty decent summertime reading. Next, we'll take a look at a first-century narrative of Jesus' life, namely the Gospel according to Luke, which you'll find in the Bible. To help us understand Luke's Gospel, we'll read a work of historical fiction called The Lost Letters of Pergamum. This novel tells a story of authentic spiritual transformation that takes place when Luke's biography of Jesus finds its way into the hands of a first-century Roman citizen. The storytelling is lively and creative. This book also would make for pretty good summer reading, especially if combined with Luke's Gospel. The second unit is called Vocation and Care for Creation, and explores the human calling to act as stewards of the gift of God's creation. We'll be reading excerpts from the writings of a 2nd century theologian by the name of Irenaeus. The collected excerpts earn a book called The Scandal of the Incarnation. Irenaeus' writing is quite dense. Remember Augustine's Confessions? And the context he writes in is a little confusing. I would not recommend this book for summer reading unless you already have some experience with this kind of literature. The third unit is called Vocation in a Pluralist Society, and it asks the question, what does it look like to think about vocation from the perspective of the Christian tradition when we all live in a radically pluralist world? To guide our discussion of this question, we'll be reading a little book by the late Leslie Newbigin entitled Foolishness to the Greeks. If you're interested in science or politics, you might find the argument of this book highly engaging. But it's not bedtime reading, though. This book will make your brain hurt. Our final unit is called Vocation and Community, and it explores the role of relationships with others as we think about the sort of life we're called to. We'll be reading a collection of short stories by one of my favorite authors, a man named Wendell Berry. The collection is called Fidelity. If you wanted to pick up this little book over the summer, I would recommend starting with the short story entitled Fidelity, which looks at how we're connected, even through death, to those whom we love. There's just 2 more books I should mention. Since the Christian tradition is a writing-intensive course, we'll be working extensively with a couple of books that will help us with the task of thinking and writing well. The first is called The Office of Assertion, which approaches the art of writing the academic essay from the perspective of classical rhetoric. The second is The Craft of Research, which you used in your research seminar in the first-year program. This book is an indispensable guide to every aspect of a successful research project. You probably won't want to read either of these books over the summer, though. You should be able to find all of these books in a campus bookstore or on any number of bookstores online or where you live. If you do end up reading any of these books and would like to chat about them, or if you have questions about the course, please don't hesitate to send me an email. I'll be spending a lot of time in my treehouse this summer reading and writing. Wherever you are this summer, I hope it is the perfect blend of relaxation, adventure, and intellectual stimulation. I can't wait to see you in the fall.